Hi, welcome to Legal Studies, and today we're going to be learning about recent reform and recommendations for change. So, where are we in the study design? Well, last lesson you learned about some factors affecting justice, some problems in our legal system like cost, time, and access. Today we're going to learn about some solutions. So, we're going to learn about recent reforms, so things that have already changed, and we're going to learn about recommended reforms, things that still need to change, recommendations for what we should still do. So we're going to learn two reforms and two recommendations for reform. So the first reform we're going to learn about is the introduction of a three-tier fee system in the Supreme Court. And this happened in 2018. And basically what it was the Supreme Court decided rather than charging one fee for each of the different things that people do, they split those fees up so that most people get charged the standard fee. So if you're an individual person or a small business, the standard filing fee for starting a case in the Supreme Court was roughly $700. They then also had a concession fee. So if you had a healthcare card or a pension card or something like that, then the filing fee was about $300, so about half. And then they also have a corporate fee. So that applies to larger businesses. And the filing fee that they have to pay is $1,400, so roughly double. So they've split up their fee system into sort of three separate categories so that those who can most afford to pay more, and those who can least afford to pay less. So what's the why here? How do we link this to the principles of justice? So the new structure, as I said, aims to improve the ability of low-income earners to access the Supreme Court and achieve equality of opportunity by making sure that, regardless of how much money you've got, everyone's got the same or similar opportunity to start a case in the Supreme Court. But on the other hand, even with this new fee structure, the cost of going to the Supreme Court can still be too high, even for many people, but especially for low-income earners who are unlikely to think, I'll spend $300 to begin my case in the Supreme Court. All right, let's have a look at our second reform. So our second recent reform is the increased use of technology in VCAT and the court, especially audiovisual remote hearing technology. So both VCAT and our court system in 2019 all the way through to 2022 had to respond to the impact that COVID had on our legal system. And as a result, they began to make increased use of technology to hear cases entirely remotely, which hadn't really been done before. So, for example, in 2019, VCAT improved its online services so that individuals could view and save their progress in a VCAT application online. And they ran a trial program for what they called online dispute resolution, which used technology like SMS and instant messaging and video conferencing to resolve minor goods and services dispute entirely online. So why have these changes been taking place? How can we link them to justice? Well, we're thinking about trying to increase primarily access to justice here, as we're trying to allow more opportunities for people to use our legal system in different ways and to try and resolve things in a quicker way and a more cost-effective way so that more people are able to use and access our legal system. It's also going to achieve equality because we've got more people now having the same opportunities to use the court system. Even if they live in rural or remote, they can now access our court system using these online dispute resolution services. So those are our two recent reforms. We've got the introduction of a three-tier fee system in the Supreme Court and the increased use of audiovisual technology in VCAT and court. Now let's turn to some recommendations. These things haven't happened yet, and we're recommending that they should happen. So the first recommendation is to abolish juries in civil trials. So a number of Victorian lawyers and legal academics have been calling for this in recent years. Juries are currently optional in civil cases, and if a jury is used in a civil case, they have to be paid for by the party that requests them. And so the recommendation is let's just take that the next step further. Let's just get rid of jury trials entirely in a civil case. And so, for example, they've already been abolished in South Australia and New South Wales. No jury trials in civil cases. So the recommendation here is let's do that in Victoria too. Let's get rid of a civil jury. So what's the why? And how can we link this to justice? Well, abolishing juries in civil cases will likely lead to a reduction in cost and delays. because juries are expensive. You have to pay those people for their time. You have to compensate them, and juries probably do cause delays in trials, as you have to explain to the jury what's the law, and it takes them time to think about and deliberate and understand these ideas. So it's likely that they do introduce delays to the legal system. So if we abolish them, we can get rid of those things. On the other hand, juries do perform a pretty vital role in allowing the views and values of ordinary people to be considered. So you might argue that this reform might actually have a reduction in access. Less people are going to get to see and be part of the legal system if we do this. So we're balancing out cost and time versus reduced access for ordinary people to take part in the legal system. And then finally, our last recommendation is that we should increase legal aid funding that is allocated specifically for civil cases. And this is coming from the Victorian Access to Justice Review. And essentially, the argument is that we provide a lot of funding for criminal cases for legal aid and not so much funding for civil cases. And the recommendation is that should change, is that legal aid should be able to provide more free or low-cost advice and assistance for people involved in civil actions. Why are we asking for this? Well, because legal aid already has very limited assistance they can provide in civil disputes, lots of individuals don't receive adequate legal assistance and often have to self-represent. A huge percentage of people in civil cases are forced to self-represent, which is going to reduce their ability to access justice. It's going to disadvantage them, reducing fairness. And so if we're providing increased funding for legal aid specifically to work on civil cases, that's going to target an area of real need in our legal system. And for example, it might allow legal aid to expand its website, to include web chat services and more information about civil law in a wide variety of languages, and expand its telephone line to provide advice for civil cases as well. And that's it for our recent reform and recommendations for change. See you next time.